if you are faced with an essay question with a time period, you don't know a lot of specific factual information, you're wondering how in the world you're going to attempt to answer such an essay question, but you can remember a main idea, a central theme of that decade, then I think that that will help you to be able to come up with some sort of argument. So I used to, in review, we would go through and try to come up with one ourselves as a group, but I decided just to go ahead and give you one up through the 1980s, so, which is on the back. So again, I really think I will look over this each night, and let's just take a couple of these and let me see if you can give me any sort of specific factual information that would apply to that decade if faced with writing about the decade. Because remember, in an essay, the most important thing, of course, is going to be your thesis statement, getting your categories out there, and then, of course, providing sufficient evidence in your argument. So let's take a hard one. 1980s, y'all be killed. I won't do that to you. How about 18? We'll go easy. 1840s. Reform crusades and experiments in perfection were reactionary measures against a rapidly changing society. What specific factual information comes to mind? Zero. All right, we got utopian communities. You can get very specific with Oneida, Shakers, and who else? Brook Farm. Yeah, Brook Farm. That would be plenty. What else? What's the era? It's the Jacksonian era.
Oh, yeah, Jackson.
So Jacksonian America is always associated with what? Popular democracy. Individualism would be very thematic of that time. People believing that they could bring about change. What religious era would apply to that?
Second Great Awakening.
Second Great Awakening. See, you do know something. What else? Think reform, kids.
Prison and education.
All right, prison reform, education reform, specific education reform. Horace Mann, the common school or public schools. What else? Andrew. The other Andrew.
He did.
Really? That's weird. I didn't hear either one of them.
I heard both of them.
The what? That's why I couldn't hear? And you can't. That was so funny. It was funny. But it was mean. Anything else? Okay, no. Good job, kids. That's it? That's all you got?
The bus was the... What? That's what Jordan said.
All right, let's do one more. You're killing me.
That might be it.
Let's do a hard one. A series of presidential scandals hindered efforts at Reconstruction and allowed Southern redemption, the 1870s. Specific
Grant.
factual information.
Grant scandals.
All right, the Grant scandals. Mentioning one or two of those would be fine. You don't really have to get specific with a lot of details. Remember, you're just looking at the overall impact of the scandal. So the overall impact of the scandal on Reconstruction efforts was? What? Yes, distrust and just, the beginning of apathy towards the efforts at Reconstruction, all of it just taking away from the effort at Reconstruction. Samuel. Boss Tweed's actually in jail by this time.
Patrice Crawford and Mi Sung Kim, if you will please
Rutherford
come
B.
to the
Hayes'
front lobby.
election.
If you're in the building, please come to the front lobby. Mi Sung Kim and Patrice Crawford.
You don't know what it is?
The camera.
Did you tape it to the chair?
Yes.
Creative. What did you say?
Rutherford B. Hayes'
Yeah,
election.
essential to this, of course, would be the very controversial election of 1876 that eventually elected, quote unquote, Rutherford B. Hayes to the presidency after the compromise with these Southerners, which of course brought an end to Reconstruction. All right, what about efforts to assimilate freed slaves into society in this decade?
Jim Crow law.
Yeah, beginning of Jim Crow. We got the Freedmen's Bureau, which was put in place to try to help them. Not enough funding for that. It was not of great use. And eventually, Northerners simply give up on Reconstruction. They are focused on more important things like getting rich. All right, so you understand the idea. So again, just knowing a main idea, a central theme of a decade, because you're always going to be given a time period on an essay question. Take that time period and say, okay, what was the main idea of that? And then if you can remember it, that should help you in trying to analyze it. Jonathan?
Our essay questions probably won't come before, from anything before 1750.
No, I can't say that. That pre-1865 period could be, it's not supposed to be on Native Americans. But they did have something, because everything I've ever heard is that you just skim over Native Americans. And really skim over exploration, even the Spanish, to a certain extent, you're supposed to just skim over. But there have been questions about differences between Spanish settlement in America and French settlement in America, relations between those two groups to Native Americans and how they were different or the same. So that can, that can hit you, but you'll have another choice in that group, so maybe the other choice will be better. So I can't say that they won't be there, but it's unlikely they will be. And as we keep going on, because obviously the history curriculum just grows every year, you'll start to see questions that are on up in history. Last year's DBQ, I've told y'all, was on the Vietnam War, which just killed everybody. I mean, not just Lampers, just everybody. It was unexpected. And a lot of people don't get there. And we'll only get there in here. So, you do the best you can, yes.
If one, since the time period is so, vast, if one question is on, will the questions be on, very separate time periods, or will they be close together? I mean, how to phrase it. If it's, 1865, will the next question be, 1870s? I mean, or they typically very diverse
No, it could
questions?
be the French and Spanish settlement question in that group, and then the other question in that group would be 1840s reform.
Okay, so they're usually very diverse questions.
Yes. I tend to remember a couple of years ago, one in the post-1865 was Reconstruction, and then the other one was the 1950s, in that group. Yeah, it might have been, I think it was New Deal was one question, and then 1950. That's not a big spread, though. But, yeah, there should be different time periods.
But you
Just,
just have to do
I don't
one.
know about y'all's test anxiety, what kind of test anxiety you'll have for this exam, but you're just going to have to try to relax. You always know more than you think you know, and it's all about change. You're just trying to prove a change. What I've been trying to say to y'all over and over, just demonstrate the development that took place, the change that took place. That's all history is. It's just one thing leading to another. It's just not that hard. Just history. What's so hard about it? The facts. It's the easiest part. Speaking of facts, let's see how much you know before I do start talking about the end of the 1940s. Let's do this little exercise. I'm going to pass this out. I want you to try to work by yourself. And what you have here on the right are a list of specific facts. And on the left, you have a decade. And I want you to put the number by the facts beside the decade that those facts are from. And then you should have a general idea of where you are and what you need to be focusing on. It only goes through the 1940s, so it shouldn't be that hard.